What if Partner Eevee was in Gen 1 OU? Oh my gosh, where do I even start with the amount of signature moves this thing is getting? Oh my, I don't even know where to begin. This is just. Okay, there is a lot to take in for this Pokemon. So, a while ago, I did the Partner Pikachu, and that was a Pikachu that was given some pretty powerful coverage moves, I would say. One that's servable with the chance to paralyze, like Body Slam. One that's just a flying move with a chance to flinch. And they all seem pretty good, relatively speaking. How about let's just have the things that are 100% accurate. Does that sound good? 100% chance to burn the foe? That's fine. Like, you want a 100% chance to paralyze? That's not broken, is it? This is just a crazy, crazy Pokemon. And the funny thing is that Partner Eevee does not learn many of the typical moves that normal Eevee would learn. It does not have Body Slam. It does not have Double Edge. It doesn't even have Hyper Beam. It has moves like Rest and Substitute, I guess. But for the most part, you are only using your new signature moves. But you have like a million of them, so why would you want to use anything else? Now, I'm not going to bother telling you why its typing is good. It is a pure normal type. Of course that's good. But to be honest, the stats aren't even that bad. Like, the other day, I literally did Girafarig, and this has better defenses than that. 70 defense is pretty good. That is literally Tauros' special. And 85 special defense is straight up just good for the time. And 75 speed is pretty good in terms of speed for the time as well. Faster than Cloyster, which means Cloyster cannot clamp block you. That's very important. Now, I guess you could say the HP and the special attack are average, but the special attack is the exact same as Snorlax. And if Snorlax can fire out Ice Beams, obviously most of these moves, if not all of them, are 90 base and power, so basically the same thing, except your status moves are just 100%. So, it's just crazy that you can use like a 90 power electric move, and it has a 100% chance to paralyze. Granted, it's only on a 65 attack, but still, you are a Pokemon with a 75 base speed stat. You have a good chance to crit. So, you're using a Thunder Wave that no matter what does some chip damage in a tier where there's no leftovers or any type of reliable healing outside of a few Pokemon. You're most of the time doing pretty significant damage. And you can just randomly crit and do even more. And then you just have insane abilities. Which, why don't we get to those? Shall we? Now, luckily, for the sake of everyone involved, the vast majority of them either don't work or are just not competitively viable. So let's go over each of these moves one by one, shall we? First off, we have Batty Bad. It should summon Reflect, but it does not work, so we can skip that. Bouncy Bubble recovers 50% of the damage dealt, but with only 65 special attack, you're not really gonna be using this much. Granted, for the replays, you will be seeing it, but that's only because this video is a Patreon requested video. Implausible requested that for each of the replays, I give Eevee the most optimal moveset. So for things like Gengar, you're going to see Bouncy Bubble. But that's only because for matches like those, there's not much better you can do other than try to paralyze, Leech Seed, and then try to go for some healing. But outside of that niche scenario, there's no reason to use it. You might think it might be worth using for Rhydon, but in a little bit, you'll see why that's not really the case. Now, Buzzy Buzz. 100% chance to paralyze. I don't need to explain to you that this is your best move by far. It is just... Oh my gosh, like, thank goodness these moves will never ever be on anything other than Eevee. But geez, this is just... It's just kind of hilarious just how good, like, these moves are. Now, next off is Freezy Frost. This is basically haze on ice coverage. Now, technically this thing does have Bolt Beam coverage with two 90 power electric and ice moves. But again, because of your 65 special attack, not really a big deal. Plus, if it isn't inherently obvious, Eevee here is 100% a support Pokemon. But Freezy Frost is interesting, but the issue is that this isn't doubles. So it's not like you can use this to help out your teammate. Now for this video, when we get to Executor, you're going to see a hilarious case of using it. But outside of that, Freezy Frost is basically useless in a 1v1. Glizzy Glow. Or Glitzy Glow. It's light screen, just like Reflect, doesn't work. Sappy Seed. This is probably the one that people would assume isn't very good, since Leech Seed famously is pretty bad in Gen 1. Rascata, I'm looking at you, still mad about my Gorgeist video. But this is not any of those cases. And there's two reasons for that. The first one is that Sappy Seed, at the end of the day, is still a 90 power grass move. And we don't really have too many high base power grass moves. We have we have Razor Leaf, which is an auto crit, but it's still an auto crit of a 55 base power move. Now outside of that, there's Solar Beam. So that's already something. But it's a grass move, which is already good against things like Rhydon and Starmie. But it's the fact that it's a damaging move that can set up seeds that makes it so much better. The problem with Leech Seed in regular RBY is that two things, really. The first is that the healing isn't a very significant amount, but the way more important thing is that the opponent can just switch out and immediately get rid of the Leech Seed. We don't really have this case here, and that's because, again, since you're doing actual damage, you can't just switch and get a free turn removing the Leech Seed. Because even if you do that, one, Eevee can just keep attacking multiple times. And unlike with the Leech Seed, where if you hit it when there's already seed, it fails. Here, you're still going to do some damage. And it's because of that if you switch out, there's no reason they can't just use Sappy Seed to turn you switch out and set the seeds up all over again. So it's a very consistent way of using Leech Seed that still, no matter what, is always going to make some progress. So, some people wouldn't expect it, but I fully believe that Leech Seed here, or Sappy Seed, I guess you can say, is just going to be a mainstay on Eevee. It also helps that this is going to be your main answer against Starmie. And I know what you're thinking, but wouldn't you rather use Buzzy Buzz? And you definitely are going to use that too, because paralyzing Starmie is kind of good. But the fact that you can... Honestly, I think if you have to choose between the two, you should go for Sappy Seed first. And that's because, despite all of your moves, you don't have things like Agility or Sword Stance anyways. So when both of you are paralyzed, Starmie's still going to be faster. So I personally would rather go for Sappy Seed first, Seed Starmie. That way you're still getting healed while you're both paralyzed, which kind of helps fit with damage ranges and crits. In my opinion, it just makes it more consistent. But it doesn't matter anyways, because you're going to have both on your set. And trust me, Pokemon really don't like it when you have them both paralyzed, and they're seeded, and they have to worry about stab normal move, or just one, which we'll talk about in a little bit. This is probably my favorite out of all of them. Sizzly Slide. And it's a 100% chance to burn, which, if you ask me, is a big deal. But this one's also by far the riskiest, because, yeah, if you paralyze Snorlax or Rhydon, it's basically game over for them. But you can also just as easily have something switch and you unthaw their frozen Pokemon, or they switch into a Starmie or Chansey and suddenly they're now burned. Granted, I guess for Starmie, you can still seed it, and it's taking both seed and burn chip damage, along with being hit with a 65 special attack. Doesn't sound too great, but kind of funny. But still, like, this is probably the move you can cut. However, it's still very good. And honestly, not being an auto-include inherently makes it stronger. Because if it's not a move that is always on your Eevee, that means sometimes they might just be careless and keep their Rhydon or Snorlax out. And if that happens, you're just golden. There's not too many other ways to say it. Now, this one I do not have a replay for. And that's because this is the move that I can only really show off in an actual Generation Jumble. With Sparkly Swirl, a fairy move that cures all status conditions on your team. This is Heal Bell, and Heal Bell is one of the moves that does in fact work in Gen 1 custom games. Although it's a little clunky. The way Heal Bell works is that it does successfully get rid of the status conditions, but for things like Burn and Paralysis, you still have the stat reduction. So for the Pokemon, you need to bring them back in, and once you bring them out, does the stats finally reset. This is still more than worth it, however, because being able to wake up your sleeping Pokemon or unthaw something is absolutely huge. And this is the main reason why you're probably not using Sizzly Slide. Because I think while catching things off guard and burning physical attackers is great, I think getting rid of status conditions on your team is just a little bit better. I know you're thinking, can't you just put the Eevee to sleep so you're free to status things? And that's true, but let me be real with you. If your Gengar or your Jinx is putting the Eevee to sleep, I'm gonna say you probably won that exchange. Absolutely. By the way, if you're ever interested in playing in like these tournaments, my Discord server has tournaments and formats that are based off my what-if scenarios. And we are actually going to be having a Generation Jumble that's going to be Let's Go. So actually, let's quickly change this to the Let's Go, what's it called, the format. So like, I'm going to click here. Everything you see here, from Mega Aerodactyl to Mega Beedrill, to Clefable, Alolan Dugtrio, we are going to be playing Gen 1 OU in custom games. So it's going to be RB White with a special stat. And we're going to include all these Pokemon here. So that means Melmetal. Some things like Mega Alakazam and Mew are going to be insta-banned. And other things like Mega Kangaskhan are going to be suspect tested. But we're going to be playing in my server and having a tournament where you're allowed to use things like Mega Charizard or just regular Cloyster to your heart's content. But it's also going to be a little bit different because it's going to be National Dex. National Dex is a big deal because, like, for say, like, let's say Nidoking, you're going to have an updated moveset. So Nidoking here will have access to a powerful move like Amnesia. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I 100% think you should join the tournament if you would like to play in a... Like, if you just want to have fun with these. Even if you're not interested in actually, like, joining a tournament, you just want to test. Because we have some people like Minnery that are in my server. They don't play in tournaments, but they absolutely like making teams and testing out. So please do it. We'd love to have you. There's only one more move I want to talk about, and that's VV Volley. If you can tell with the thing that says Max Happiness 102 Power, this thing is basically Return. However, like, funny enough, the only difference is that it can't miss. So just like with Swift, this is going to be the only attack in the game that is not affected by the 1 in 256 glitch. And like I said earlier, you don't have Body Slam, Double Edge, or Hyper Beam. So this is your only stab move. But basically having normal Earthquake with stab, yeah, you are definitely going to want to take that. That's great damage. And 75 attack is honestly not that bad. That's more attack than Tauros special, and you're actually using stab. At first, when I didn't make the video yet, I didn't know if Partner Eevee was going to be good or not. I thought there was a genuine chance that it would be too frail. But no, I'm very convinced that with Return, Leech Seed, Paralysis, and Heal Bell, those are 4 moves that are just great support for your team and can also just potentially help Eevee just beat Pokemon on its own. And you have other moves like the Burn, which can catch something off guard, And it has enough stats where it's not just getting killed instantly. To be honest, in many ways, I think Partner Eevee is just a better Smeargle. Do you have trapping moves? No. You don't have Spore either, but at the same time, Smeargle stats are just a little too low. It just can't reliably stay in on anything, and has no ability to actually fight things on its own. Eevee has a strong stab move, and plenty of special moves that have great coverage against things in the format. So Partner Eevee here, absolutely perfect in its moveset. In terms of playing it, it is extremely annoying. But that's it about the pre-analysis. Now let's get on to the replays. Now, again, I think I said this earlier, but my Patreon supporter Plausible has requested that for each of these, I use the most optimal moveset. So here we have Eevee that is burning a Tauros, and that is honestly, in of itself, while funny, it kind of means that Tauros needs to respect Eevee to the point where it can't just stay in. You probably need to switch to make sure it's not a burn. Otherwise, something like that can happen, where Eevee can just actually beat a Tauros 1v1. I never thought I would see this in my day, but here we are. Next up, we have Snorlax, and since you're slower than Eevee, this is actually even worse, because now you're burning it, and Snorlax has Amnesia, but again, like, you also have Eevee that can just use Haze, basically. And if you saw there, that was a Glitzy Glow, this was when I tried testing screens, and as you saw there firsthand, they do not work. But to be honest, even if the screens did work, I am not convinced that they would be very good. Compared to the massive support you have, I think just hitting things and then using like Leech Seed or Paralysis is a lot better. And for this case, unlike with Starmie, I probably should have Paralyzed it first. I'm not sure I went for Leech Seed, but it doesn't matter too much, because Chansey here is on a bit of a timer, and VV Volley is doing a lot of damage. Obviously, like, Leech Seed becomes significantly better for videos like these, where I'm doing 1v1s with no switching. Like, I always like to say, like, take these 1v1s with a grain of salt, because in almost every single scenario, you're not just going to have two Pokemon just fight each other at full health while they're healthy. You're never going to take a Tauros out against an Eevee when the Tauros is susceptible to status. But obviously, for these videos, I can't just show you entire games, because not only would they get boring, but the majority of the games would not be on the sole focus of the Pokemon. So, this is how I have to do it for now. Although I still think it's interesting to show just what the damage ranges are and how annoying sometimes it can be. Zam, I think, is a pretty big threat to Eevee, because having just a great crit rate in Psychic, you're probably not going to win. But at the same time, you're probably mostly just wanting to, like, paralyze it anyways. So, not the biggest deal. Now, I think Cloyster's really funny, because you have Clamp, but because of Leech Seed, you're gonna be taking Chip every turn, and Eevee's gonna heal a little bit. So really, there's just nothing Cloyster can do. Because even if Cloyster, like, doesn't get, like, a long Clamp lock, it's just gonna, like, Eevee can just paralyze it, so it's just hilarious. And Cloyster didn't even get the chance to go for Explosion for this replay. I just find it funny. Next up, we have Executor. And I wasn't sure what was better between going for, like, the burn or paralysis. I settled on paralysis, because I feel like Eevee probably does better when you can have some free turns. Also, let's rewind that a bit. So, like, I think it's kind of funny. As you see here, Executor is going to go for Psychic. It gets the special drop. But because of Freezy Frost, you are resetting you're resetting the special drop. Granted, it wasn't enough, because a normal Psychic still 3 hits you. But look at that! Executor is still paralyzed and at half health. So, if you didn't get the special drop, Eevee could just gone for 2 VV Volleys, and there's always a chance of a crit or paralysis. So this is definitely a could go either way, and Executor is not having a good time. Like, this Executor can very easily be revenge killed. That is a second Executor replay. I didn't mean to put that there. Let's just keep moving on to the next one. Now for Gengar. I think I said this before, but technically this is basically unwinnable. Because Gengar's special's too high, and you don't have any moves that can do a lot of damage to it. But you better believe, not only can you annoy the heck out of Gengar, but you can basically put it into very easy revenge kill range. Like, as you see here, Gengar, it is not having a good time. Not at all. It is paralyzed, seated, it's at 33%. Anything in the game is going to easily revenge kill it. Granted, this was with Eevee using a bouncy bubble, so it was healing itself. You're not really going to use that move, so in most circumstances, it's going to die a lot quicker. But I don't think that really matters. And here's an interesting little interaction. Notice how Buzzy Buzz didn't work? That's because, same way how normal types can't get paralyzed by the 30% chance to paralyze, with Body Slam. It's the same thing here. Because you're an electric type, electric moves' secondary effect are completely irrelevant. You technically already have this with Thunderbolt's 10% chance to paralyze. But still, like, this is a big deal. A really, really big deal. Because you're the only things in the game that have a resistance to Buzzy Buzz outside of Rhydon. And Rhydon isn't a good switch-in because you have, like you see here, a grass move. And trust me, we are going to get to that pretty soon. Next up, we have Jinx, and Jinx hits you pretty hard, but thankfully for you, it's not a consistent 2-hit KO. But it's still very scary, and the crit is absolutely killing you. So this is a pretty nerve-wracking, could go either way, where both parties are extremely uncomfortable. Next up, we have Rhydon. And honestly, in terms of making a replay where I'm supposed to have the best case scenario, I almost wonder if it would have been better to just go for like the burn and then go for the water move. That probably would have been better, because if I would have done that, then Rhydon would have been burnt, would have barely done any damage to Eevee, and then with Bouncy Bubble, you would have, I'm assuming, O-code, and then healed back any damage you took. But at the same time, I really don't think it matters. You just delete most of Rhydon's HP anyways. I don't think anyone was thinking that Rhydon was going to have a good matchup here. Now, Slowbro is also pretty hilarious. Even more hilarious than with Cloyster. Because you can paralyze Slowbro, you can seed it so that it can't just like keep going for rest until you get a full paralysis. And on top of that, you can go for Freezy Frost, so you're once again faster than it, and are free to kill it with your grass or electric move. It is like literally the perfect Slowbro counter, and it is hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. Now Starmie. Starmie, I would say you also have a pretty good matchup against. Granted, it's not always flawless, because Eevee's bulk isn't perfect. But still, you can seed it to give you better damage ranges. Starmie can recover, but every time Starmie recovers, it's taking very valuable HP away from it. And every time that happens, Starmie gets a little bit lower in range. And more importantly, Eevee slowly gets healed back to full. And Eevee, with its 2 super effective moves, and with return basically, can absolutely force Starmie to go for recovers. So, this is a pretty good matchup. But because of Starmie's crit rate, I'm not going to call it a great matchup. But I can absolutely see the argument for it. Alright, let's keep going. And next up, we have the Bell. Now, it probably would have made more sense to go for Paralysis, but I wanted to go for the Bird instead. Because normally for these replays, I don't actually give Victory Bell the luxury of using Wrap. Which I know I should, because that's really what it's supposed to do, but I thought it was funny here, because for this scenario, even with Wrap, since Eevee burned the Victory Bell, it's doing chip damage too, and Victory Bell would die before Eevee did. I just find that amusing. But it doesn't matter too much, because even in a different scenario, you paralyze the Victory Bell first, it's immune to Leech Seed, but you have a strong normal move, so you're pretty easily going to win the exchange. Next, we got Zapdos, and there's like no real gimmick here, but at the same time, Zapdos is immune to your, like, paralysis. So unfortunately, I think Zapdos just kind of cooks you. You might get lucky with, like, Return, and with Leech Seed, you might be able to force it out, but I think you're just kind of losing every single time. I think I have Zapdos in bad matchup, but I think I need to put it in unwinnable. Now, normally, this is where the video ends. But like I said, this is a Patreon video. And for Patreon videos, I'll always add 3 extra replays for whatever Pokemon would be interesting to the one I'm making a video on. If you like this for yourself, feel free to go in the description of this video and check out the Patreon as well. But you don't have to do that. I try to make these videos every day, so at the very least, I would appreciate if you subscribe and like the video. It really helps out a lot. Now, if you're guessing what Pokemon I have for this, let's see how many of you guessed correctly. First up, we have the regular Eevee. Because like I said, you do have different moves from the regular Eevee. They actually have normal stab, but you have one normal stab move, and it's pretty good. It does over half to Eevee, so yeah, you're not in trouble. But Eevee did the more damage than I thought, so we can at least give a kudos for that. Now, can you guess what the second Pokemon is? Considering you saw Eevee, you probably did. But now we have Vaporeon. Vaporeon has super strong special attacks, and you're not really taking too much from Eevee's signatures. So Hydro Pump is just really putting you in a dangerous range. Eevee can very easily be killed here with a crit. Or if, Vaporeon didn't miss. But assuming it doesn't get hacked to death by RNG, Vaporeon is very dangerous. It can absolutely win. Last but not least, and you can probably imagine what this is going to be, we have Flareon. Flareon has pretty dangerous Hyper Beams and Fire Blast. And unlike Vaporeon, you don't really have like a super effective move against it. For this replay, you have Bouncy Bubble, but obviously you're not always going to have that. It's not very good other than like this circumstance. So honestly, I had this in quickly the way, but now that I'm looking at the footage again, in a realistic scenario, Flareon is going to burn you. You can't use your signature move with Eevee, so Return is doing half damage, which means you're stuck to use your electric move, which isn't going to do that much, since in this generation, Flareon actually has good special. Yeah, I think I'm actually going to move this to bad matchup. So let's update some of this. Flareon is in bad. Zapdos is being moved to unwinnable. I'm still going to keep Eevee in great because it's inconsequential. This thing is not doing much anyways. Zam definitely needs to be moved to bad. But I think everything else is fine. Maybe because the Executor is bad. But I think putting it in Could Go Either Way is probably fine. But what do you think? Now, I think Partner Eevee is definitely going to be a monster. Not so much in terms of like its DPS or anything, but this would be one of the most effective support Pokemon in the entire history of the game. And even in later generations, like Gen 2, Gen 3, etc., it would basically be doing Smeargle's role, but better in many cases. Granted, this thing can't set entry hazard, so Smeargle with that in Spore is still going to have a place in, like, modern gens. But still, definitely very interesting, and way better than Partner Pikachu. What do you think? Do you think I'm glazing it too much? Or do you think I'm doing the opposite, and not doing a good enough job representing how bad this thing would be? And by bad, I mean OP. If you think this thing is too annoying to be banned, let me know. And how do you think this is going to do in Generation Jumble? Because support is still pretty good when we test this out in the Discord server. But there's also going to be monsters like Mega Charizard, Mega Gyarados, Mega Kangaskhan. So the power creep is going to be way worse. So Eevee might not be able to safely help you out by supporting your team. But you won't know unless you go on the server and test out with us. So, I hope to see you there. But until next time, this is Groundback, and I look forward to hearing from you.